What I am going to do is I want to document the behind the scenes of me rebuilding momentum in my business. And there's lots I want to share about that. I don't know, it's going to unfold as I go. But I used to create on YouTube. I loved it. And then I switched to doing audio only on the podcast. And I have continued to be a lover of podcasts, but also a lover of YouTube. I watch a lot of YouTube, and I just have felt called for so long to be back on YouTube. But I wonder if, because I watch a lot of YouTube and I watch it on our big TV, that it feels like everyone on YouTube is so big physically that I feel like I just stopped identifying as someone who can create in that way, and went into just like, I'm going to do the podcast, no video, I can just chat and do that and have that be great, which it is. But I have really been wanting to vlog and also to just be seen again. I just haven't let myself be seen the way that I used to be, and I don't know, I just feel ready. So today is the 16th of April 2026, and I feel like I've been in the process of rebuilding momentum in my business for a while. And where do I even start? I'm trying to just figure out where to even start. So for me and business, and I think this is such a big part of it, it's really important to mention that I went full-time in my business in 2019, started in 2013, made my first dollar in 2016, and that was while being a university student and then working as an accountant full-time after I graduated with a law degree, finance degree. And then in 2017, I left my accounting job so I could go to a university reception job I had, and I could have more time for my business because that was just an afternoon job. And then in 2019, I was making over 6 figures in my business and was able to go full-time because I was making full-time income. I've made multiple 6 figures every year since then. And so in 2020, that was really like my first year full-time in business. And then I became pregnant at the end of that year with my daughter Lydia. And then I had back-to-back years of pregnancy with twins, birth of twins, pregnancy with my littlest Liam, and then birth of Liam. So I had 4 kids within 4 years. And now Liam, our littlest, is nearly a year old. Next month in May, he'll be 1 year old. And I feel like I'm just coming back out of such an intense personal season. So many shifts required to go from not being a mum to being a mum of 4 kids under 5, while also continuing to run a business and helping my clients and all of those things. And so I just feel like I'm now like, okay, now I can focus on my business again. I've still been working that whole time on my business, but really the priority for me was my family, having healthy pregnancies, having the birth, having the children. All of that was really ultimately the priority. And I organized the business essentially around my personal life, which I don't think is a bad thing. That is something I still value doing and is very important to me. But the priority was having the business continue to grow and continue to be successful while having the kids, instead of I'm willing to not have kids if it is going to cost me things in the business, if that makes sense. The kids were the priority, and they still are. So now I feel like I'm essentially a year postpartum. I'm sleeping a lot more, still disrupted, but sleeping a lot more than I have been previously. And I just feel like I'm ready. And there's so many things I have to share, and I love sharing the real behind the scenes, not like the polished version of it. But I'm just thinking about in this video, where do I start, or do I even need to start, or do I just tell you what I'm up to right now? How about I tell you what I'm up to right now? Right now, what I'm up to is filming a video for YouTube. And what I have been up to in the last few weeks in particular is kind of just like noticing all the places in my business where I've been in the shoulds of what I should be doing, and making the decision I want to make rather than doing the thing I should be doing. So an example of that is a few weeks ago, I posted on my Instagram account. I'm at Perfectionism Project on Instagram. I posted there and I have a decent following, and I've been creating there since 2014. But I posted that I'm not going to be posting on Instagram at all, on the feed or on stories or anywhere on Instagram for the rest of 2016, 2026. So that was a decision that I'd been toing and froing about Instagram for a long time. I did a podcast episode in 2021 about why I didn't want to do Instagram that year, and I was going to be focused on the podcast and running ads. And I always kept going back into, no, but I really should be on Instagram. And I also like lots of parts about it. I like connecting with people. I like being able to post something and people can view it right away, and you get the like DMs and hearing about people's thoughts, and like I get feedback on things, which is really helpful. But ultimately it has always felt like I'm doing it out of obligation. And whereas podcasting, I love doing that, and I still have fear and doubt and perfectionist thoughts that come up about it, but I love doing my podcast and getting to share long form, talking about perfectionism and business and getting shit done and personal development. And that to me doesn't feel like a chore or an obligation or like something I have to do. And I do that very much in a way that isn't following best practices. I just know what I like of a podcast from being a podcast listener from like 2013. I was super into podcasts. So I knew what I liked to listen to, and I just created something that I would like to listen to and trusted there are more people like that, who like the this kind of video, unpolished, off the cuff, just chatting as me kind of thing. And yeah, so I decided not to do Instagram anymore. And I've also been closing a lot of tabs in the back end of the business. In 2023, I had a marketing manager for a period, and during that time we started a quiz called the Perfectionism Quiz. And people like the quiz. I think the quiz is good. Like, there's all of that. But also I just never really felt compelled to share it. Whereas there are other things I feel more compelled to share. So I've just decided to stop doing the quiz, to stop paying for the software that the quiz runs on, and to stop having that be something that people can sign up to do. So there's just like lots of little decisions like that. I'm wanting to start writing again. So I started this business as a blogger in 2013. My blog was called smart-20s.com. I was a 22-year-old university student just trying to figure out how to make the most of my 20s. I'd been introduced to the world of personal development and was like, this is interesting. And I was introduced through listening to podcasts to the world of online business and blogging. So I started a blog, and I loved writing. I had a lot of perfectionism come up, a lot about it, but I loved expressing myself that way. And then at some point along the line, I think around 2019, I stopped writing. And I would still write emails to my email list, but I stopped really writing to express ideas, and I only did that in the podcast or on Instagram. And I'm really wanting to return to writing again. And this was from a few weeks ago. I was looking back, you can go to waybackmachine.org, I think, and I was looking back at my blog from 2015, and I was reading an old post. I can't remember why I was doing it. It was for something related to something current that I'm doing. And I was like, oh, this is actually good. And why did I stop doing this? Because I enjoy doing it, and it's helpful and it's clear, and like, why did I stop this? And it really just connected me with a lot of the things earlier on in my business that worked that I just along the way stopped doing, or started telling myself I shouldn't do that anymore. And this also, before that, I'm like backing up as we go, before that, maybe a week or so before that, a friend of mine, Sophia, we caught up. She has a business as well, a coaching business, and she recommended it's called a parts integration, but she had someone come into her program and teach this parts integration. And she shared it with me because basically there's something going on subconsciously, which I love the subconscious work always. Something's going on that you've been successful, and then now you're not wanting to be as successful, and what's that about? And so I did this essentially meditation hypnosis thing. I was practically asleep when I was doing it. It was right before bed and it was late. But what came up for me during that is that I didn't want to be left behind by myself, and that I felt like, and it was so interesting this came up because I never would have thought this consciously, but it feels so true, that my self that had been like striving towards big goals and doing it in this way that had almost been dismissive to like how I'd been doing it before, and I don't even know how to word it, but I had such a sense of like the way that I did things in the beginning before I even knew what I was doing. A lot of that made so much sense and still makes so much sense, and I really want to reconnect with that, which is stuff like talking on YouTube like this is something I used to do, and I used to do a lot of it, and just like letting myself talk on the podcast instead of thinking it has to be in a certain format or it has to be a certain way or have a certain result, and just like getting so caught up in my perfectionist thoughts about like now what it means to be good enough at doing these certain things. So I just really felt called to reconnect with the things that worked before I even really, like before I was making money, before I even knew that they were working, but I did know they were working, like me writing, me showing up and sharing stuff, me documenting behind the scenes things, me sharing my journey as a perfectionist entrepreneur, which is what I've always been sharing. Before I even knew I was a perfectionist, that's when I started the business, not knowing that I had a perfectionist mindset. I had to figure that out the hard way by it coming up and causing so many problems in business, and then having to figure out how to solve that, which is what I help clients with. But really, I feel like I'm in a period currently of just reconnecting with, not myself, because I went through a period at the end of last year, like just like reconnecting with my business, reconnecting with myself. That might sound a bit vague and esoteric what I mean by that, but like I feel like I kind of forgotten who I was, not in this like lose yourself in motherhood kind of way, but in a, how do I even word it? It's just like I felt like I just wasn't being who I actually am, particularly when it comes to business. Like I wasn't just letting myself show up and share stuff and like trusting myself and all of those things. So I did a lot of work with that at the end of last year, and I also had a lot of shame as well about being successful and then feeling less successful, or feeling like I'd been failing and trying so hard but still failing. And I had a lot of shame to release about that, which I did. There's probably still some work to do there, let's be honest, but I've done a lot of it. And now I feel like I'm in this period of really just reconnecting with the core of essentially like the tools that I teach: power planning, growth goal, clean rest, doing sufficient work, like all of those things, which I've been continuing to do, but like really deepening my own practice with them, and then letting myself just show up and share stuff, letting myself do this, and reconnecting with like, what do I actually want to do? If I can achieve my goals for my business in any way, what way would I want that to be? So like there's thoughts that I have, and also my self-image, how I think about myself, how I perceive myself, that has a far bigger impact on the results I'm able to create than the literal actions that I take. Like how I'm thinking and feeling as I do stuff is what determines the effectiveness of what I'm doing. And so I can have a plan that I actually want to execute on. If there's not like, well, if you want to have this kind of business, you have to do this and you have to do that. It's all about the thinking, and that's what creates the results. I won't go into that in this of how that works, but I'll probably do a video specifically on that. But that is why I'm able to, like, that belief is why I'm able to have the podcast, for example, be successful, even though I'm not doing what people say you should do, because I know what's more important is how I'm thinking as I'm podcasting, rather than like if I have it be a certain format. I hope that's making sense. Probably not, but I will carry on. So all I wanted to do today in this is just like capture where I'm currently at, which it feels a bit messy, but also like I love watching vlogs, and they often, my favorite ones are like the people doing boring stuff and just chatting through how they're thinking and what's going on. So I'm just gonna trust this is like that. And I've done it before. I used to do vlogs, so I know what I'm doing. So that is today. I'm going to record a podcast episode, and then I will also record it as a YouTube video as well. That feels scary to me. I'm just thinking though, besides it feeling scary, what does it feel? It just feels like I have this feeling in my chest, like just this discomfort, but it doesn't actually feel scary. It just feels unfamiliar really, because I haven't done it in a long time, but also because I have thoughts of I really want it to be good, and then that feels like, what does that even mean? So then it's really hard to live up to that. But sometimes you just gotta do it bad. That's what I'm gonna do. And I've also, podcast wise, feel like I've just been in my head lately with the podcast and just kind of like reconnecting with really how I want to do it, and that the podcast is really the marketing. It doesn't have to do 100% of marketing and sales, and like I just feel like I have put a lot of pressure on the podcast. And also recently what I've come to remember is that email marketing is such a big piece of my business, and it's something I've consistently done, but had kind of at certain points, particularly in the last few years, just been like, oh, I'm doing it just because I should, instead of really recognizing that emails play a really important role in helping people decide if they want to be my client and to work with me and to join my program, Perfectionists Getting Shit Done, and that I can have podcast episodes, so basic, podcast episodes that invite people to join my email list. I've just relaunched as well. I did a video series called the Planning Series that helps people get started with power planning. I've reinstated that, so you can sign up for that. I will link it so you can sign up. And I have now lost my train of thought. What was I saying? Anyway, I am going to let myself do like kind of like return to the things like the email marketing, YouTube, even potentially Pinterest, writing. I'm kind of just in a period of like bringing that all back together. And I have been in the process of cleaning up my clean rest. So I work 3 days a week. My 3 work days are the days that the kids are in daycare. And yeah, so what I had been doing when I've been feeling like I was failing is that I then started being sloppier with when I was working and when I wasn't working, and like trying to squeeze work in. I know that's always a sign for me when I'm trying to squeeze stuff in, because I was trying to figure out how to fix the business, and that is not how I do my best work. And so what always works best for me is when I have my clear work time, and then I have clean rest, as I call it, which is non-business time. Often in my clean rest time, I'm looking after my 4 kids. So it's not like rest, sit at the spa kind of time, but it's time where I'm mentally switched off from business. So I have reinstated my normal parameters, which is during non-work time, I don't work, which has been really nice to be back in that and like really give my personal life more attention mentally. We can be like physically present, but not mentally as present as we want to be. So I have been enjoying that, and my parameter for all the work stuff I'm doing is like it needs to be within my 3 work days. And I have one-on-one clients within that time. I have my program that I coach in as well, and there's other things I'm doing, but I'm just like I'm just like getting back into everything, and it feels really good and it feels really messy. I think what I was saying before is that with the podcast lately, I feel like I've been in my head with stuff, and we didn't have an episode go out this last week, even though we're in a PGSD launch. And normally the podcast is like the main thing in the launch. And we also had the worst stomach bug ever last week. And Steve and I, my husband, we got hit the worst, which normally we don't get hit by stuff. It's all the kids. We got hit the worst, and I had to have the whole last week off and adjust my power planning and just allow whatever I could do relating to the launch to be okay. And yeah, so there's that too, that I didn't work at all last week, and I'm just like getting back into the swing of things. So I'm going to record a podcast episode. My perfectionist brain is telling me I have nothing to say. So I am going to ask my brain instead what I can say and get it and like redirect it to I actually do have so many things I could share, and allow myself to record it. I think I'm going to do just hold my microphone, which I normally do, record it, video, and then put it up on YouTube and just like rip the band-aid off, so to speak, and just like get going again, because sometimes we can just make things such a big deal in our head, and then you do it and you're like, it's not that bad. And for me particularly, I have already been active on YouTube and created hundreds of videos before, so I think it's just a matter of getting back on the horse, so to speak. And yeah, so I'm going to do that. I'm not sure with this vlog if it's going to be over like different days or whatever, but I am committed to publishing it and sharing. And yeah, it wasn't in my power planning today to do this, but I've just been, and that's why it's flexible planning method, we just adjust. But I really and just letting myself get back into the groove. So I'm gonna write down, I have my notebook I use. If you go back and watch old videos, still the same notebooks that I use from Officeworks here in Australia. But I am going to give myself a topic that I want to talk about. That's such a key thing. Instead of like, what should I talk about? That's always hard. What do I want to talk about? Always way easier. And there's always so many things I want to share. So I just need to connect with that, allow myself to record, let it be easy. Yeah, okay, that's my update. I have decided what I'm going to do for my episode, which is I got a really great email from someone last week about what they're struggling with procrastination wise. And so I'm going to do a video for them and just share some thoughts, some off the top of my head thoughts that will be really helpful for her. So I think I'm not going to have notes. I'm just going to go and find the email, and I've got my microphone, Audio-Technica 2100, as recommended by Tim Ferriss from way back, who I still love. Okay, so I'm gonna have my microphone there, and I'm gonna also talk to camera. I can do that. So I'm going into my emails, and I am just gonna let myself chat. Okay. Oh. Okay, so I have just recorded my episode, which to be honest, I feel like it didn't make sense, but we keep rolling. We keep rolling with it. So I need to get to my podcast editor, producer, who doesn't edit the episodes, just has them go out. I gotta get back to her because today is Thursday and it is my last work day of the week, and Steve and I are going to go play tennis together at 4 o'clock before we get the kids. So I also have a few emails and things like that to create for next week, but it feels like massive progress to get a YouTube video done, a behind the scenes vlog started, and podcast episode done, and I just feel like things are going in the right direction. So I will get that done now. I need to have lunch. I feel like also when I was recording, I had the fan off and I had my jacket on, and I feel like I got so hot throughout it, but I just kept it on. But I feel like I was so red by the end. But it got done and that's all fine. And it just feels good to be back in a like, we just keep going. We just put it out and move on and do something else, and put it out and move on and do something else, and put it out and move on, as that is really how I built my business. And when I've not been in that and just wanting to like hold on to things or not create them and perfect them, that it has been very hard to do that. So I feel like for me, like the next 100 episodes from now to 700, which will be about like this year and next year, I might go back to doing 2 episodes a week. We'll at least get ahead on the 1 episode a week first before deciding that. That it really is just like letting myself show up and share stuff again, and letting it be marketing without having to try and have it be selling at the same time. But I believe in PGSD so much, and what I do, that I naturally talk about it a lot and invite people into that. But I also just want to show up and share stuff while thinking about you, the person on the other end, and what you're actually struggling with and what you want my help with. So if you ever have a question you want me to answer in a podcast episode or a video or talk about, like I love getting asked questions. So please ask them, even if you don't know the perfect wording, please just ask it. So I am going to save these files. I also have to figure out, I think the file on the YouTube video will be really big, so I have to figure out about that. But that should be fine. And yeah, I feel accomplished. I'm going to update my power planning as well before I have my lunch to reflect. I'll have like 90 minutes before I wrap up for the week. So deciding what I want to do in that 90 minutes, so that when I go to tennis, I just have such a fefeeling of completeness, which I love having my power planning to create a feeling of completeness. Even when in business, there's always a million things you could be doing. I, especially at the end of my work week, love having my power planning that I feel complete for the week. And just by the nature of power planning, this happens. And then I've kind of like mapped out roughly, not my full power planning for next week, but roughly like what I want to do, so that my brain can rest knowing that what I need to do in the future is taken care of. So I don't have to think about when am I going to get it done. I'm also going to think about what I want to do on my 4 days off with Steve and the kids. And yeah, so that is maybe my last update for today. We will see. So I am in my tennis stuff, ready for us to go. I have an hour, and so I just wanted to record a little bit of this so that I can publish this and I can let this be complete, even though it feels like nothing has really happened. But I just want to have the ball rolling. So what I'm going to be doing this afternoon is getting this video and mainly the podcast episode, but getting both of them onto my computer. I had to update my YouTube channel name from Smart Funnies to Perfectionism Project, and I might quickly update the banner. That's not essential. It is sufficient to have the outdated one for now. And getting the podcast episode to Eloisa, and then so I send out an email, I'll link it up as well, but I send out an email every weekday called the Perfectionist Power Up. It's just a 1 to 3 sentence email designed to help you show up and do the things you want to do, particularly if you're a perfectionist building a business. It's for you. So what we have been doing with these is, it used to be I would write them every week and they would go out and everyone on my email list would get the same one. And then as I focused on other things, what I did maybe a year ago now is we set up a sequence to send out because I'd written hundreds of these Perfectionist Power-Ups, to have all of those ones that I'd already written go out to new subscribers so that they would get that. And then I haven't written a Perfectionist Power Up probably for a year. And I really, in terms of connecting back with things, I really want to get back into writing my Perfectionist Power Ups every week, or a few weeks at a time, but there's 5 of them each week, and having that go out real time. And the other issue we had as well is that they all have the same footer. So it's the few sentence email, and then below it, it's a win from a PGSD and then a few links to things. And what has happened is that sequence of Perfectionist Power-Ups, I think, is 283 emails long, and we need to update the footer. And so we have to literally go through every time it needs an update and update 283 emails, and that just doesn't seem like it's just a confirming reason for why I want to go back to having them be broadcast, and then we can just, whatever the footer is at that time that makes sense, we can do that. But I am doing it because it really helps me connection wise. I love thinking about particular PGSDs or particular people who I've been emailing with and things like that, and what might they need to hear today, or if it's the Wednesday one, what will they need to hear midweek or at the end of the week. And so many people love the Perfectionist Power-Ups, and it's just a little power up in your inbox. So you can sign up for them if you want, but I'm going to be writing them again. So I think I want to write my Perfectionist Power-Ups for next week, and write the email that goes out to promote the podcast episode, and also mention about it being on YouTube as well. And then there was something else. That's essentially it. And there's one more email to write for next week, and then I can do the rest next week when I'm back. And I will do a final check of PGSD to see that no one needs replies from me, that I replied to everything this morning when we had the coaching call, or before the coaching call. And I'll check in with Neha on my team if she needs anything from me. But I am going to be walking out of here. My favorite thing, I call it landing the plane, which is when you finish your day at the exact minute that you plan to, with a feeling of completeness. Not oh my God, I have to leave, but things are feeling incomplete. I love using my power planning to have that feeling of not just completeness, but I literally leave at the exact minute. So I want to walk out of this office, it's 2:49. I want to walk out of this office at, I want to say 3:45. I'm going to say 3:45. And I will be done until Tuesday when I return to work again. So I am going to wrap this up. I am going to put some music on, put my headphones on, open up the windows again because I had it set up like this with my curtain. At some point I will give you an office tour so you can picture where I am. But I'll just open things up, get my work done, basically work really intentionally for the next hour. And I'll use my distraction journal, which is, I might talk about that in another video, but I did do a podcast episode on it recently where I just write down the distractions as they come up and the things I need to do later. So my brain isn't wait, we're going to forget it later. We have to do it right now, because I really want to have that content created. And that should be everything. I've already done everything else this week, and I am looking forward to getting to do YouTube again and being on the podcast again, which I have been already, but I just feel reconnected with it. And yeah, I'm excited. So with that said, I will wrap up this vlog for the week. If there is anything you want to ask me or to see, let me know in the comments, and I will do my best to share. And if you aren't familiar with my podcast, The Perfectionism Project, and you want to know more about what I do and how I can help you get out of your own way, in the sense of like, if you're a perfectionist and you're building a business and you want more help from me, go and listen to my podcast. We've uploaded some of it onto YouTube as audio only, but for now, probably going on to Spotify, Apple Podcasts, wherever you listen to podcasts is going to be the best way to get all of that, because there is a lot there. And I feel like being on YouTube again has me feeling like, well, there's some things I've said on the podcast without video, so now there's like key core things I'd like to have a video version of, and not just to like repeat exactly the same thing, but to have a different angle of the same thing. Like I want to do a video on all or nothing thinking. I want to do a video about decisions. Like there's just I have an endless amount of topics I wanted to share about that will be really helpful. And I also want to, now I have video like this, I can share more about power planning as well, like the visuals of it. So that is the core tool that I use to run my business and my life. So I'd love to share about that. But yeah, I'm gonna wrap it up and talk to you soon.